My name is John Lohman. I'm the publisher of the weekly Corridor Business Journal. On behalf of my wife, Aspen, and our entire staff, it's my pleasure to welcome you to the 2014 Commercial Real Estate Luncheon. I know some of you, many of you are still eating, so please continue to eat and consider this a working lunch. The agenda for this morning is I'm just going to say a few words, and then I'll have Dave Brown from Modern Companies come up and give a welcome, and then introduce Kelly Hayworth and Ryan Heiar. Kelly and Ryan will talk about what's happening in development activities in North Liberty and Coralville. And then we will have a presentation by Scott Byers on the commercial real estate market in the corridor. And when he finishes, we'll dive into our final portion, which will be our developers panel discussion. Now, if you've got questions for our panelists, we're going to do it like we've done it in the past. There are some green cards at your table. We kindly ask you to fill those cards out and then put those cards in your stanchions like such. And we'll have some folks going around and picking those questions up and giving those to Casey for his consideration. So that's the plan. If you would like to tweet about today's event, you can use the hashtag CBJRealEstate, hashtag CBJRealEstate. I would like to now take a couple minutes to thank our generous sponsors. Without them, we would not be able to put events on like the Commercial Real Estate Luncheon. We're very pleased to have Modern Company as the presenting sponsor. Established in 1938 as Modern Refrigeration, the family of affiliated companies, often simply referred to as Modern, is now comprised of Modern Piping and its service division, Modern Piping Quad Cities, Modern Sheet Metal, Modern Control Services, Modern Project Services, and Modern Companies. Together, these companies provide customers with a one-stop solution for all mechanical contracting needs. For complete mechanical system design, fabrication, installation, and service, they are the corridor's only full-service mechanical contracting solution. And please help me give Modern Companies a round of applause for their sponsorship. We're also very fortunate to have the City of Coralville as our major sponsor and our host today. There's a lot going on here in the Iowa River Landing in Coralville. Help celebrate the opening of Wine Styles, 30 Hop, and True Style with the Wine, Hop, and Shop Passport going on through September 27th. Get your passport stamped at Wine Styles, 30 Hop, True Style, Massage Heights, Water Street Coffee Bar, Scratch Cupcakery, and Von Mar for your chance to win one of 3 prize packs featuring amazing gifts. And you get your passport at any participating Iowa River Landing business or at iowariverlanding.com. And please help me thank the City of Cedar Rapids, City of Coralville, as the sponsor. We're also fortunate to have GLD Commercial as a major sponsor. GLD Commercial prides itself on being a locally owned and the area's largest brokerage firm dedicated exclusively to the business of commercial real estate. While in its 5th year of business, the GLD team has over 125 years of collective experience. The team of 9 full-time brokers brings a serious commitment and team approach to each assignment, helping you and your company achieve maximum results. And we're very fortunate to have Scott Byers from GLD Commercial, who will be giving the commercial real estate market update in just a few minutes. So please help me give GLD Commercial a round of applause. We're fortunate to have Shive Hattery as a major sponsor again this year. Shive Hattery is an architectural and engineering firm with offices in Cedar Rapids, Iowa City, West Des Moines, in Bloomington, Moline, and Downers Grove, Illinois, as well as Valparaiso, Indiana, and Chesterfield, Missouri. From site planning to exterior and interior design, Shive Hattery's commercial project teams are attuned to today's marketplace. Trends for current projects in today's markets are in infill developments with mixed-use sites that are re-energizing our communities. With full-service creative design and simplified delivery processes, Shive Hattery is ready to serve your needs so you can have an edge in today's competitive marketplace. Please help me give Shive Hattery a round of applause. We're also very pleased to have Two Rivers Financial Group as a major sponsor again this year. As a premier financial services provider, Two Rivers Bank and Trust is a local community bank where it's the little things that really make the difference. Building relationships is their calling. They strive to understand their customers' goals, and using the expertise of their team of professionals, pair the optimum technology in the products and services for their personal and business needs. Established in 1904 and formerly known as Burlington Bank and Trust, their parent company, Two Rivers Financial Group, was formed in 1992 and serves as the umbrella for a number of financial services companies, including Two Rivers Insurance Company, Employee Benefit Systems, and Two Rivers Investment Services, with local banking centers in Coralville and Iowa City, as well as Ankeny, Des Moines, West Des Moines, Burlington, West Burlington, Mediapolis, Mount Pleasant, and New London, and a loan production office in Bettendorf. They are locally owned with stockholders in each of their local markets. Please help me thank Two Rivers for their sponsorship and support as well. We're very pleased to have Climate Engineers as a supporting level sponsor this year. Climate Engineers was founded in 1947 and is one of the largest HVAC contractors in eastern Iowa, with offices in Cedar Rapids and the Quad Cities. The company has grown to over 150 employees and over $30 million in annual sales. Climate Engineers currently does work for many customers in eastern Iowa, including the University of Iowa, ADM, and John Deere. The company has many specialty services available, including a retrofit energy savings device called the Catalyst. The Catalyst system has proven to save significant money and have a return on investment of only 2 to 3 years. Large or small jobs, Climate Engineers offers the experience and expertise you would expect from an industry-leading HVAC company, and please help me give Climate Engineers a round of applause. And last but certainly not least, we're very fortunate to have Cook Appraisal as a supporting level sponsor again this year. Cook Appraisal is a commercial real estate appraisal firm serving Johnson County, Lynn County, and eastern Iowa for the past 25 years. Its appraisers have 65 years of combined experience. Clients include banks, financial institutions, accounting firms, real estate developers, and brokers, attorneys, city and state departments, and investment firms. Cook Appraisal has 4 certified appraisers, 3 of whom have achieved the MAI designation, and the panel that's going to be happening in just a few minutes is moderated by Casey Cook from Cook Appraisal. So please help me give Cook Appraisal a round of applause as well. On the back of your program, we'll talk a little bit about a couple upcoming CBJ events, and I wanted to draw your attention to just a couple of them. Our next event is something new for the CBJ. It's a Veterans and Employers series of events set for October 7th and November 18th that will help large and small businesses better understand how they can employ veterans. So if you have a special interest in employing veterans that are here or that will be coming back soon, you can attend this event and really understand how to do it. And so we're excited about putting that event on. That's, again, on October 7th and November 18th. And then our event after that is our 10th annual 40 Under 40 Awards Dinner, which is set for October 23rd at the Kirkwood Hotel. This event recognizes young leaders in the corridor who have the tremendous efforts they have made to improve the corridor and their businesses and nonprofits. So we're excited about that. And then lastly, you can mark your calendars for our Economic Forecast Luncheon, which is our biggest event of the year, and that is set for January 14th next year. And then our commercial real estate event is already set for September 15th, 2015, and that'll be at the DoubleTree in downtown Cedar Rapids. So hopefully you can put those dates on your calendar as well. Okay, I now have the pleasure of having Dave Brown, the president of Modern Piping, come up and introduce Kelly and Ryan. So please help me welcome Dave Brown up to the podium.
Thank you, John. Modern Companies is proud to be the presenting sponsor for the CBJ's annual Commercial Real Estate Luncheon. We appreciate the efforts John and his staff, and recognize the value they bring to the local businesses and community. In a time where most communication is electronic and somewhat impersonal, it's refreshing to attend excuse me, to attend an event like this that brings us together face to face as business leaders to network and share information and ideas. John stole some of the stuff I had prepared earlier, so I'll skip along. Referring to the corridor has new meaning to us. As many of you have seen in our new 90,000 square foot corporate headquarters and fabrication facility located along I-380, just south of the airport exit. Just look for the building with a big orange stripe. Hopefully you can't miss it. With this new state-of-the-art facility, we have significantly expanded our piping, plumbing, and sheet metal fabrication operations. I guess you could say we're wearing our optimism on our sleeve. July 26th marked the CBJ's 10th anniversary. Congratulations. We started 75 years ago as modern refrigeration and have never left, thanks to you all. I now have the pleasure of introducing our first two presenters. Kelly Hayworth has been the city administrator for Coralville since 1988. He is a Bachelor of Business Administration and a Master of Business Administration from the University of Iowa. Second, Ryan Heiar is the city administrator for the city of North Liberty. Ryan grew up in Manchester, Iowa, attended the University of Northern Iowa, where he earned a degree in public administration and has followed in his father's footsteps, who was a city manager for nearly 3 decades. He moved to North Liberty in 2007 with his wife and their 2 children after serving the cities of Elkader and Eagle Grove. With that, I guess I'm done.
Well, thank you and good afternoon. Kelly and I recently joined the Twitter world, and so you can follow us along today. We thought we'd share with you some of our recent posts. You'll find that not all of them are business related. In fact, Kelly and I are known to share jabs about our bikes. If you've seen Kelly out, he's got a nice, cute little bicycle with pedals. I, on the other hand, have a big Harley Davidson, chromed out, big motor, all the fun things. And I always tell Kelly, my bike's better than his, and he disagrees. And my retort is, I can generally get through the Ragbri route in 1 day.
Someday Ryan's going to learn about real biking, and Sturgis has nothing on Ragbri.
This year, the City of North Liberty is going to be starting a special census. We've seen quite a bit of growth since 2010. Our estimated population at this point is about 16,500. That's based on rooftops only. We hope to complete the census in 2015. And the biggest advantage for us in completing this special census is that with this new data, we anticipate about $300,000 each year in additional road use tax revenues.
The cities of Coralville and North Liberty have cooperated for many years on the 965 Coral Ridge Avenue area. We completed a joint planning effort about 4 to 5 years ago, and both communities have active projects going on this year. These projects will make it easier for people's commutes through the area, and they will also open up new areas for development.
We also have a project in North Liberty on 965 this year, north, by Penn Street and Scales Bend Road. If you've read the papers this year, that project has not gone according to plan, but we are making progress, and it will go into 2015. One of the initiatives we took on, knowing what an impact this project would have on the businesses, was to increase visibility for the businesses in that area during construction. So one of the things we did was work with the folks in that area to create a farmer's market. And we've had great success with that farmer's market. In fact, we have one this Sunday from noon to 3. So if you're in the area, join us.
The University of Iowa Research Park has seen a lot of success over the last year. Sedgwick is open. MediRev is having a ribbon cutting on their second building next week, and the UIHC office space is under construction. Last Friday, we were proud that 3 companies from the Research Park area received state assistance to help them with their continued growth.
North Liberty recently approved an economic development loan for Blend Card, which should be your favorite loyalty card. If you don't have a Blend Card yet, I encourage you to go get one. We're excited to continue to work with entrepreneurs. We're working with ICAD as well as a local developer on a joint collab facility in our community, and hopefully more details will be available soon on that project.
One of the things the 2 communities have been working on for some time is a new interchange on Interstate 380 at Forever Green Road. This interchange has been put on the Iowa Department of Transportation's 5-year road plan and is set to be constructed in the 18 and 19 time period. This will provide easier access to both of our communities and open additional areas for development.
As many of you know, Forever Green Road is the border between North Liberty and Coralville, and so Kelly just mentioned the project that we're working together on the west side. A couple years ago on the east side, we conducted an alignment study for where Forever Green Road needs to be located in the future. The 2 councils approved that final study, and so now we have a plan in place when development occurs out there and when property owners are ready to build, that they know exactly where that road needs to go. And as you can see here, the mayors are pretty darn excited about that. They got themselves in on this with a selfie. So,
another joint project between the cities of Coralville and North Liberty we are working on joint water and sewer utilities for our northeast development area, commonly called as the Scanlon area. I think you will be amazed at how in 4 to 5 years the Scanlon area, northeast area of Coralville, southeast of North Liberty will turn out.
as Kelly mentioned, we're working on utility infrastructure in that area, and we're very excited about the Liberty High School that will be opening in 2017. So not only are we working closely with Coralville, but also the school district to bring in the utilities and also to upgrade the roads in that area to accommodate not only the high school traffic, but the traffic of future development as well.
Another project that we're very excited about is the new Kirkwood facility at the University of Iowa Research Park. The new STEM facility will be open next fall, and this facility will make a difference in the education of our students for 7 different school districts that are working with the University of Iowa, Kirkwood, and Grantwood AEA.
Commercial growth continues to gain momentum in North Liberty, and I think a lot of that is because of the joint efforts between Coralville and North Liberty. I think we're working together for a better community, and the end result is good. We're very proud of what I like to call our anchors, and that is the University of Iowa Community Credit Union and the Heartland Trucking Building right on the interstate. I think that's a nice entrance to our community. We're also happy to see the activity on Highway 965 in Penn Street. We've got a tremendous amount of new businesses, including cupcakes, yogurt, movies, pizza, and I think this was a great marketing strategy, a dentist after eating all that stuff. So a lot's going on those corridors. And this is obviously one of my favorite places in that area. And the last thing I have to offer is that, Kelly pulled a fast one on me with the whole bike and dropping me off in that ditch, as you saw earlier. But what he didn't know is I snuck up on him at City Hall this week while he was reading. The guy's a literary genius, and this is what I saw him reading.
So as you can see, we have a lot of exciting things and fun things happening in North Liberty and Coralville, and we invite you to continue to come to our communities and shop and enjoy. Our next speaker is Scott Byers, and Scott brings 40 years of experience in commercial real estate, including various roles as broker-owner, statewide director of commercial operations, developer, and investor. In 2014, he was elected to the Midwest Real Estate News Hall of Fame and granted Realtor Emeritus status by the National Association of Realtors. Does that mean you're old? He tells me that he is loving his current role as peddler for GLD Commercial, and his clients include Hy-Vee, UIHC, Ryan Companies USA, and numerous national retailers and investors. Please welcome Scott Byers.
Tough act to follow, boys. Yes, as a peddler, we talk fast, so I'm going to cover very briefly a lot of topics. And my goal is to touch on national trends, see how those are reflected in the corridor, and hopefully interpret what it all means. In doing the research for this, one thing that became evident was that all the trade publications and analysts are emphasizing in a more important role than ever before the health of the local economy and how that impacts property valuations and growth opportunities in all sectors of commercial real estate. First, I'll touch on retail. Nationally, the story is that local income demographics, housing growth, and location of rooftops are driving retail decisions. Vacancies nationally are down. They're around 10% for strip centers and 8% for malls. And rents have grown for 12 consecutive quarters. Locally, the same thing is true. Action is brisk, and particularly, which is kind of an interesting phenomenon, niche or specialty retail grocery retailers. Whole food derivatives, if you will, and there's probably a half a dozen of those now scouring our markets looking for locations. These can definitely energize a center, as hopefully we will see at Sycamore with Lucky Foods and in Cedar Rapids with the Kmart East Center and Fresh Market. So keep your eye on those. Vacancies are lower in the corridor than they are nationally, and basically they're plus or minus 6% depending on location. Okay, what's that mean? Well, demand is healthy, but the retailers are specific, and the further one strays from the established retail nodes, the harder it is, or the longer it takes, rather, to absorb new product or to attract national retailers. They just don't want to be pioneers, which means in the north half of the corridor, they focus on the First Avenue Collins Road area or the Westdale area. An example of a great location that took a while to gain traction was the corner of Edgewood and Blair's Ferry Roads Northeast, which is the home of the new Fountains mixed-use complex. Great location. It's now established. It's Hy-Vee anchored, but it took years to gain traction. Southern end of the corridor, the obvious epicenter is Coral Ridge Mall, and then the centers north of Interstate 80, as well as the 965 spine up to Penn Avenue, as Kelly and Ryan just discussed. Iowa River Landing has had a longer than expected road in attracting national retailers and getting a critical mass of those retailers, although they appear poised now to enjoy growth, much like the Fountains has in Cedar Rapids. So, in both markets, if you go outside the main areas, you need to proceed with caution and definitely monitor rooftop growth or be shadow anchored by a big supercenter like a Target or a Walmart. Moving to industrial. Nationally, again, the news is good. There's positive consumer spending trends. There is an uptick in manufacturing, and there's been an 8% growth in online spending year over year, which has fueled the demand for warehouse space. It's upped it considerably. Also, you have fulfillment centers, but those tend to be near the major population centers of the country. And yet, overall, warehouse vacancies are declining to around, they're trending towards about 7%, which is better than they've been even pre-recession. So that's good news, whereas locally, we're doing actually even better. Vacancies are at 5% in the Cedar Rapids area and 3% in the Johnson County area, which is unusually low. Cedar Rapids is probably a better barometer of the overall industrial segment because it has quite a bit more warehouse and industrial space, and occupancy levels there are nearing all-time highs. 2 new projects under construction in Cedar Rapids are a 31,000 flex space project along Bowling Street and a 40,000 square foot trucking center along Interstate 80. Well, what all this means is that, in theory, it may be an opportune time for some speculative warehouse development, as much as 100,000 square feet in the northern half of the corridor, and maybe smaller opportunistic opportunities here in Johnson County. But a word of caution, and this is interesting and sobering, I think it'll be discussed by the panel, the costs of the building, everything but the dirt, if you will, have increased by 50% over the last 10 years. So rents have definitely not gone up that much over those same 10-year period of time, and the gap has been bridged in part by the low cost of funds. So one has to make sure they either have a very desirable location or an anchor tenant or both. But if you are a landlord and your rents are subject, or your leases are subject for renewal, you can hold firm on your prices simply because tenants do not have many relocation options. Let's go to office. A big story here in the corridor. Nationally, the biggest headwind to what's been a soft sector has been a conservative approach to space utilization. Simple terms, it means that tenants are trying to jam more people into smaller space. The statistics are interesting, and these are at national level. They vary here locally. But 4 years ago, there was roughly 225 square feet allocated per person in a typical office environment. That has shrunk today to about 175 square feet per person, and some predict that that may go as low as 100 square feet per person in the next 4 years. Again, we're a little more generous with our space utilization here, but so that has continued to keep downward pressure on office growth. The other big story nationally is the declining vacancies in central business districts. And you will note that the trades will tell you that the vacancies are declining down to about a 16% vacancy rate in central business districts. The anomaly to all that might be next door in Iowa City, which has always had and continues to have a very low vacancy rate in its business district. But nationally, what's happening is some of this space is being converted to residential uses, which has helped whittling down that vacancy. If you want, think of Dubuque. All you have to do is drive through Dubuque and see the ramifications of that type of conversion activity. Rents nationally and in the office sector have risen for 14 straight quarters, albeit moderately, and effective rents have remained flat when one factors in rent concessions and TI allowances. Okay, locally, it's a big story. The story at both ends of the corridor continues to be the construction activity underway or in the pipeline. In Johnson County, most of those projects are mixed use or somewhat university driven or related. But you know, a quick recitation of those projects: Park at 201, the Chauncey, Medirev, which Kelly mentioned, Sedgwick, which he mentioned, and the 40,000 square feet in the newest building here in Iowa River Landing, the upper floor of that building, 40,000 square feet, which will be occupied by UIHC. So collectively, that's about 150,000 square feet of new office space in Johnson County. And Rod Lehnertz will touch on the $1.2 billion worth of projects that the university has in the pipeline, and not even mentioning the UIHC building there at the research park. In Lynn County, you have the new CRST Center, you have the new Ruffalo Cody building, the Geonetrics building, and the office component of the Fountains Project that collectively they're all breaking ground or have broken ground here in 2014, and collectively amount to 400,000 square feet of new office, which is a significant amount, both ends of the corridor. So what that means, with the exception of the Fountains Project, each one of those projects, each one of those undertakings are either build-to-suits or 50+% pre-leased. So they're done wisely and with not a lot of speculation involved. And the other thing that's worth noting is, of course, they're new, and each of those buildings would be considered Class B+ or better, which is where the demand is. That's true locally and that's true nationally. That continues to put pressure on B and C class office space, particularly in Lynn County, where there's a big overhang of that amount of space. So if I'm an owner of a B or C class property, I would either think strongly about selling, refinancing, remodeling, or repurposing that space, because the fact of the matter is that without those changes, the property values aren't going to change, the rents aren't going to increase, and your vacancy factors aren't going to get any better. I think there's still room for some selective growth in Johnson County for office. However, the planned Museum of Art mixed-use complex will certainly include a component of office space, and that may serve to fill that demand. Moving to multifamily. Nationally, it's very interesting. There is a tremendous amount of new products, new apartment projects that have been pumped into the system and coming on stream now in the latter half of 13 and the first half of 2014. What's different is that a substantial number of those projects are, at least in part, enjoying some degree of federal assistance, or some degree of governmental assistance, I should say. So, as we look at the multifamily world, we're trying to decide, what kind of pressure that might put on the older existing inventory of apartment projects. All that said, it is notable that the demand for stabilized apartment projects throughout the country and in eastern Iowa is unsurpassed. There is a tremendous amount of institutional and private investor interest in acquiring those types of projects. Local story, and I think this is rather interesting, the local story is how the Tri-Cities of North Liberty, Coralville, and Iowa City have soared past the Tri-Cities of Hiawatha, Marion, and Cedar Rapids in terms of number of building permits and absolute dollar value of those permits in the multifamily arena. And not just by a small margin, by the way, but by almost a margin approaching 50%. There were a whopping number of 566 multifamily permits issued in 2013 in Johnson County, though that number is a bit skewed because of the raising of the Hawkeye, what's it called, the Hawkeye Court Apartments, which was the married and student and grad student housing. So that actually offset that number by nearly 270, so still a net gain of a substantial number of units in Johnson County. And there are plans for more student housing, both north of the Memorial Union, and additional grad and married student housing. So things just keep on going in Johnson County, and whereas the pace continues unrelentingly, so does the demand. I think what that means, if you compare both markets, is for the time being, I think those markets are in balance. Casey Cook's company does thorough analysis of all those things, and he would attest to that. And occupancy rates and rents are at historic highs. Cedar Rapids has been very successful in obtaining some CDBG monies that was flood related to replace housing stock. So there's a healthy amount of new units there that are in the pipeline. And I certainly touched on how things are going here in Johnson County. As an investor or developer or lender, I guess I wouldn't go crazy with new product in either of those two markets, although I still believe there's some room to grow, and in particular, I'd note senior living opportunities. Oak Knoll in Johnson County added 67 new units in the last 12 months, and they still have a waiting list of over 50 people. Lastly, just a niche worth a quick mention is the demand that has soared for single tenant, long-term, triple net leased investment products, where the owner has minimal responsibilities. And there's been tremendous demand, because of the tremendous demand for that type of product. The rates of return that the investor can expect are at all-time lows, cap rates, if you will, and yet the demand keeps going. It's fueled by retiring baby boomers who are looking for safe havens. It's fueled by a desire to have no responsibilities or no management obligations, and cost of funds, certainly, as well as 1031 exchange transactions that fuel this. But it's notable, and retail tends to be the preferred asset class for that type of investor, followed by office and then industrial. The premium that investors are willing to pay for a retail product is the highest it's been in 15 years versus those other categories. Quality properties sell within a matter of 2 weeks. And though you would think, and it's true to an extent, that the prices that people pay for those types of products are higher in the major population areas, it's not as dramatic as one might think, and that would be the exception to what I originally started the presentation with, whereby the local economy and the health of that local economy is less important than the quality and the quantity and the duration of that income stream. So, there's a few examples here on the board of the type of cap rates. These are national numbers that investors are willing to accept for those types of products, usually a 10-year plus or minus lease duration. But you see the auto parts retailers are at 6. Casual dining, that's your Applebee's, Olive Gardens, high 6%. You can read down the line. Dollar stores a little higher for a Family Dollar than it is for Dollar General. I'm sorry, for a Dollar Tree than it is for Dollar General. CVS's and Walgreens, quick service restaurants are your Taco Bells, your Chick-fil-A's, and banks tend to command the greatest premium to in terms of their resale at 5 to 5.5%. You could add maybe 50 to 75 basis points, and you'd have a pretty good read there about what those properties sell for in the eastern Iowa area. I appreciate your attention. This is a great turnout. I'll also be available if people have questions they want to pose my direction after the panel's done. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. We appreciate your insight into this important topic. I'd invite our panelists to come up on stage while I introduce Casey Cook. And if you have, again, questions for our panelists, please would have you fill out these cards and put it in the stanchion, and we have folks walking around and get those cards up to Casey for his consideration. Casey Cook is the founder and managing partner of Cook Appraisal. Their core work is in Johnson and Lynn counties, although they have experience working from Davenport to Council Bluffs and from Mason City to Indianola. They don't appraise houses, but they do just about everything else, including commercial properties, appraisals for acquisitions, subdivisions, and development land. And Cook Appraisal typically delivers over 300 reports per year, and they have been in business for over 20 years. Please help me welcome Casey Cook to the podium, and I'll turn the program over to Casey.
Thanks, John. One of my favorite things to do, and I think for any appraiser it's a favorite thing to do, is to ask a lot of questions to smart, experienced people. And we're very fortunate today to have 5 very smart and experienced people, and you'll be able to share in their insights. So I'm very much looking forward to this, and this is a happy time for me. Doesn't mean I'm not nervous, but it's a happy time. So I'd like to start out by giving the panelists a chance to introduce themselves. And in addition to their background, tell us a little bit about some of the projects that you guys are working on. You start with Joe.
All right, sorry about that. Joe Ahmann, Ahmann Companies. We started in business in 1991, primarily designing residential properties. Throughout the past 20 plus years, we've developed into what we call Ahmann Companies, which is a group of different entities with Ahmann Design still a major player. Fusion Architects, which is our commercial design firm. Compass Commercial Services, which is our general contracting property management company, and then various property ownership entities. Notable projects, I think, you saw on the board earlier is the fountains on the corner of Edgewood Road and Blair's Ferry. It's a 240,000 square foot mixed use development, and we're about 90,000 square feet into that property right now. The geometric building was mentioned earlier. We did that on a design build basis for the geometric folks. And the great Furniture Mart project, the old furniture store downtown Cedar Rapids, we're in the midst of redevelopment of that property. So that's just a few notable projects we have in the works. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is John Frew with Frew Development Group. I'm a native Iowan, grew up in Des Moines, University of Iowa, and moved to Denver about 30 years ago. Loved skiing and never left, one of those things. Believe me, Iowa sprung a leak somewhere, and all of us are in Colorado. So lots of friends there, and about 5 years ago, we've been in business since 2003, construction management, project management. We've lately, with the West Del Mall project, have moved into risk-based development on our own. But about 5 years ago, we were hired by the city of Cedar Rapids to rebuild the U.S. Cell Center, Convention Center, help them acquire the hotel, rebrand it, remanage it, and it's now the DoubleTree by Hilton. And we have mainly operated as a fee-based project manager, but since the crash of 08 and 09 have found opportunities and have acquired capital partners to allow us to move into a risk-based platform, and there is no shortage of opportunity. So we are pleased, we've grown, and it's always great to be back here in the quarter.
Hi, I'm Rod Lehnertz. I am Director of Planning, Design, and Construction for the University of Iowa. In my 21st year at the university, and this has been an interesting stretch for the university and others since the 2008 flood. We're at a historic transformational period for our campus, as Scott mentioned, in the midst of $1.2 billion in construction on our campus currently, wrapped up primarily in flood recovery and flood replacement projects, but also including important projects like the Children's Hospital at the UIHC complex. We have tested the market and the construction market. We continue to test the construction market. It has pushed us toward new creative ways of delivering projects. The University of Iowa for 166 years delivered all of our projects by design, bid, build methodology. We now have 2 projects, one newly completed and one nearing completion, that become prototypes for the state in delivering alternative delivery methods. These 2 design build projects, which in the real world is not an uncommon way to go. Certainly at the state level it has been. So both have been very successful and have actually encouraged contractors who would not otherwise come to our market, come to our community, come to the university to bid on and construct projects. So it's been a busy time, but one that has been an honor to be a part of. Certainly it's been exciting. Thank you.
My name's Kevin O'Brien. I have the weakest resume here, that I'm kind of a hamburger salesman, and so I wondered what, I asked John, I said, why am I here? And he said, well, you do this other development work and things like that. So I do bring a retailer's perspective. And as a marketer, I want to say, Ryan, next time you get on a slide with a burrito in one hand, I expect a Big Mac in the other. And Scott, normally, McDonald's restaurants, those aren't for sale, but you need to mention those along with Panera and all the others. So my family's been in the Iowa City area since 1958. An interesting thing, my mother was actually the first woman franchisee in McDonald's in 1958, at a time when, if anybody's old enough to have a mother that was around back then, women were kind of expected to have the martinis ready when the man got home from work, and that was not in my mom's repertoire. So she was very active in advancing the causes of women in business, and taught me a lot about that. And so they were one of the first 60 restaurants to open in the McDonald's system, and now there's just over 35,000 of them. So I'm grateful to learn from a pioneer. We have I currently own 9 restaurants down as far south as Washington, Iowa, out to West Branch, North Liberty. Was involved with Mike Evans and helped to develop, actually brought Walgreens to the site of Penn Landing, and to move on to other projects. Sold out my share of Penn Landing to Mike, and he and his son have gone on to do a nice job of developing it. In your brochure, there's a picture of a concept that we're working on behind the McDonald's on Riverside Drive. It's been a challenging site for us, but I've held on to it for a long time, hoping to do the right kind of gateway project for that area. And as things are changing in the area along South Riverside Drive, we think that this project will be a catalyst. The preliminary work is to do a rooftop garden on top, some nicer condos that overlook the river, and as that, we hope to be the catalyst that gets everything else going in that area. So that's one of the projects we're currently working on. And there's a multi-use project near the Coralville McDonald's, which we think will be a great site, and also as Iowa River Landing continues to grow and expand, will help to pick up on that growth and development. So, and there are a couple other projects that I, along with Hunter Parks, are working on that we're just in the phases now. But Iowa City is such a great place to be in business, and with the tremendous growth, we're just very honored to be here and honored to be part of this distinguished panel.
All right, last but least, I'm Greg Swartzendruber, Director of Business Development for Hunter Companies. As Kevin mentioned, we're working on a couple of items together I'll let him discuss. We're a full-service developer, general contractor. We build to suit, we build to own. We have a property management company within. All things that we're happy to do, and we'll build McDonald's or Poncheros, Kevin. We're not discriminating in our place. Certain projects we have going now, just finishing up with Fleck Distributing, their addition. That's an industrial project that we're doing. Get into some mixed use. We've got a couple different items. Northtown Market, which is formerly a Nash Finch site. Working on that in Cedar Rapids, as well as mixed use development on 42nd and Edgewood.
Thank you, gentlemen. The first question I have, it's really a constellation of questions, and I just want to make them open-ended and really interested in hearing what you have to say. It has to do with green technologies. The focus of my question is, I'm always struck by LEED certification, and it strikes me that LEED certifications were developed more by people who are interested in design and architecture than people that are interested in banking and finance. And I wonder what your take is, number one, on LEED certification and its financial feasibility, but also if you have other insights on emerging green technologies or the kinds of things you're doing with green technologies, I'd be interested in hearing from you. So whoever wants to start.
Let's start. Anybody? Go ahead, John.
Give us 10 minutes. We won't be that polite. LEED certifiable is very distinct from LEED certified. And you can march up to that level, but not having paid for the ticket that says it is LEED certified. So there are a number of ways you can achieve that goal, but you know, I find that it's difficult to achieve the leasing prices that you need to become the higher end of LEED certified for buildings. Not in all cases, but in many cases. And you know, rather than focusing on that, what we like to do is focus on all the ways in which you can actually drive efficiencies and not look so much at the capital budget, but the long-term operations. So the various things that, from lighting to sprinkler heads, there are every year advances in technology in ways in which you can not only save money, but then you know, from Alliant Energy in particular, at least in the Cedar Rapids area, you can achieve rebates from using some of these technologies. So for me, it goes far enough towards that line as you think that you can gain back in rents and in income, but there are a lot of ways to achieve efficiencies that are very, very green without having that tag.
Sure. At the University of Iowa, we did begin to create a regimen for our buildings, new buildings and major renovations that would require a LEED Silver designation or higher, starting in 2011. And before we made the stride to do that, we were, I would argue, still already designing buildings to be green and easily cared for. And our model was based on a total cost of ownership, understanding that the buildings we're investing in are going to be here or expected to be here for as many as 100 years. So the decisions made are not short-term decisions, but long-term decisions, taking into account the cleanability of those buildings, the maintainability of those buildings. And so when we made the decision in 2011 to require LEED Silver, it became a Board of Regents rule following that. We already had design standards that exceeded the Iowa Energy Code and expectations from an HVAC perspective that put us, frankly, into the silver category with no change at all to the funding models or the estimates related to those projects. In fact, what we have found by model since 2011 is that our standards, which do, as John mentioned, the rebate program, has brought in millions of dollars to the university through energy careful design, and we have reinvested those funds in energy savings projects. And in fact, we require at the university that all of those rebate checks are reinvested in energy savings projects as opposed to just doled out to the different stakeholders for those different projects. If a designer follows our standard design standards, the default is LEED Gold on our campus. Of course, the site has a lot to do with the final designation, and that's not always the case, but we now have 2 LEED Platinum buildings on our campus. And in both cases, one of those an academic building, our first one, the College of Public Health, which was built in 2011. In both of those cases, it's all about a return on investment for the university. We don't do it for symbolic reasons. And so each of the methods we test in a green design are tested against the return on investment for those efforts. And that's where we end up with silver as a minimum and gold as really our standard these days.
So one of the things that McDonald's looks at is they continue to work with their buildings as far as making them more energy efficient. The amount of recycled materials that we use and that we spec that our contractors use is significant. We put waterless urinals in several of our restaurants that save approximately 30,000 gallons a year per restaurant of water, which reduces our impact to local sewer systems and water plants. The other thing we're looking at is we're going to be remodeling the Riverside Drive McDonald's along with our other project, and we're looking at solar panels to light our outside lighting buildings, and also our goal is to lead the way, kind of like the university does, and to John's point, when you're in the retail business of trying to lease space, it's difficult to pass that cost on to tenants. So one of the things that I salute the university for is there are times where, as an investment, the university or taxpayers get involved in helping to advance causes that the commercial market can't necessarily afford. But in a situation where what Rod and his team will learn and they can share with the private sector, which makes it more economical for us to then experiment and play with other things. So I take my hat off to you as a taxpayer. I think it's a wise investment. I think it it helps to bring those costs down so that we can then put those into the private sector. But I understand living in this community that we need to be a leader in conservation and technology, and McDonald's understands it because they spend a tremendous amount of money every year on rebuilding and are constantly looking at things to be more green and to reduce our footprint in the community.
Sure.
I guess I'd like to add a couple points to that, and very similar to the rest of the panel. One thing we look at additionally as it relates to higher rents and dollars spent is, the efficiency of not only the systems that you're putting in a building, but the efficiency of the building itself and how it's designed. So maybe some of those dollars can be picked back up in a more efficient design. And the other thing that I think is important when you're looking at rates is, can you quantify in utility bills, utility rates, because you built that building more efficient, you're going to have those lower rates, and how do you show that to the end user so they can visually see the benefit of maybe paying a higher front-end rate on leases, but the total rate together is very similar because of the efficiency of the design.
Yeah, I would agree with Joe. That's something that we look to do is we look for solar payback opportunities as well as efficiencies that we can pass along to our clients, or if we're going to be the end user and owner of a building, we're certainly looking for any efficiency that'll pay off over time.
I had a chance to visit the BMW Museum in Munich, Germany this summer, and they've got a lot of electric technology, electric cars, an electric motorcycle. And their focus, though, more than anything, is on the infrastructure to support electric vehicles. And I'm, charging stations, the availability of charging stations, how to find them, that kind of thing. Is any of that kind of technology, is that you've seen any demand for that? And if so, if you had a chance to respond, Greg, you're nodding your head.
Yeah, we actually have at the Edgewood Station location in Cedar Rapids, we have an area for plug-ins for electric cars.
Anybody else care to chime in on that?
I'm not going to misspeak on Nelson Electric, our partners in this field, but Westdale, I anticipate, will have a charging station. Wouldn't think of a reason why we wouldn't. And it's just sort of it's a tug and pull battle. In Colorado, it's become very popular, but 100 miles, you can't go much farther than that. You better have stations in. And so in a lot of cases, government has subsidized those stations to get the network up and running, and it worked. I see no reason why that won't be the case here. So if the demand's there, we'll put it in at Westdale.
Yeah, Casey, at the university, we do, as Kevin mentioned, we do have the advantage of not just business planning, but also education and in research. And so our facilities management fleet of cars we use on campus are growing in the number of 100% electric. And we, to advance that, we put in a photovoltaic, in effect, a photovoltaic car port for those cars with the plugs directly below the panels. This has afforded us an opportunity with another different photovoltaic installation adjacent to it on our CAM bus station to test the effectiveness of these two different types of photovoltaic systems, and at the same time grow our fleet so that over time, each time a lease is up, we're replacing it with electric vehicles and a new breed of electric vehicles that are more efficient, can go further, are better for those who are serving the campus. So we're a testing ground for that as we move forward and continue to grow the electric fleet on campus.
Any results so far? Any?
Well, first there's a learning curve to it. We had project managers who wouldn't get in that little golf cart. And during the winter there are challenges. The carport actually affords a couple of advantages. No snow on the vehicles during the winter, but there are also some challenges with heating those cars. And so we're able to, with the newer breeds, get over some of that, and they become more and more popular, more and more relied upon, and in effect a symbol for what we're doing there. With respect to the photovoltaic study, we've got several projects, including one that was just approved by our Board of Regents, our College of Engineering addition project, a 65,000 square foot addition to the Siemens Center that includes classroom space, research space in the building to test photovoltaic systems, and a roof that is set up to host those photovoltaic systems. We've got a lot of flat roofs on our campus and a lot of opportunities to grow photovoltaics over time. The challenge at this point is, as I mentioned before in our green technologies return on investment, the cost of payback for photovoltaics. We continue to work with representatives of that industry as the costs come down, and we will continue to test those and grow, I think, over time on our campus.
Okay, thanks. I've gotten a couple of questions from the audience, and they're related. And they both raise the issue of the role of government support in general to development projects and TIFs in particular. And I think one of the questioners points out that the trap that tenants get into. They have the advantage of a TIF. It is used up, and then all of a sudden, they're responsible for those property taxes, and they go up pretty dramatically. That is assuming if the developer actually passes those benefits on to the tenants. So I'm curious as to your thoughts on the appropriate role specifically for TIF credits, but there are a lot of ways that private-public partnerships can function, and if you have insights on that. And Greg, you and I were talking a little bit about your project up there on Blair's Ferry Road, the old Nash Finch warehouse. Could you tell us a little about that?
Yeah, absolutely, Casey. We believe that the project that we've got, Northtown Market, which is the former Nash Finch site, is exactly what TIF was intended for. It's a blighted industrial area. It's a vacant area, has been for a number of years. And so we've been working to create something that is more befitting of the neighborhood, that is going to create a tax base for the city. It is also going to create opportunities for commercial, retail, office, all sorts of mixed use that'll benefit the community and the people who are using the area. It's also a great high traffic area, and we felt like, much like the city of Coralville has done with the Ohio River Landing, taking an area that originally was a negative and turning it into a positive.
You can ask.
Yeah, there's several projects that I can call off in Cedar Rapids that would not have happened without a public-private partnership, whether it's TIF, whether it's brownfield, grayfield tax credits, enterprise zone credits, those types of opportunities that are out there. Geonetrics, for example, which was built last year down in the Nubo area. Very difficult site, some environmental issues, soils issues, in the midst of an area that was heavily flooded. Without those incentives, that project would not have gone. And those are the exact type of things that a city, especially Cedar Rapids, wants to have happen. Those are the areas that they've earmarked that they'd like to see rebuilt, because we can't have a viable downtown, a viable business and arts and entertainment district, and have these properties, sitting there the way they are, either unbuilt, buildings falling apart, bad sites. Another example would be the Great Furniture Mart, if you're familiar with downtown Cedar Rapids, with True North going in the old library, the new federal courthouse, and then the 4-story brick building that had been sitting there vacant and deteriorating for 5 years. Again, there's a perfect example. Without it, the cost to acquire and redevelop a project like that just doesn't work without those types of funding mechanisms out there, and I think they're very important for the right project.
I would add Westdale Mall to that list, Joe. There is no question, emphatically no question, we would not have undertaken Westdale Mall had it not been for a partnership with the city of Cedar Rapids. And that partnership isn't just the TIF, but it goes far beyond that in meaning and in commitment, the amount of time that the city staff and the members of the council, from Jeff Pomerantz on down, all put into this. It simply wouldn't have happened. This is a 35-year-old mall that was dead and dying and going away. We are under construction after 3 years of effort and tremendous work by our staff and our team. But I'm telling you, it is not easy. It's complex. And so the more complex, more difficult, more challenging a project, and that doesn't necessarily mean that it's in a blighted area. Usually it does, but not necessary. The more essential it is for these sorts of public-private partnerships. Arizona is the only state in the union that doesn't allow it. Most states go far and beyond where Iowa is and allow both property tax and sales tax TIFs. If anything, I would say many parts of Iowa are too timid. I certainly don't see that in the corridor, and you see the results. Cedar Rapids stepped up. I can't speak for Iowa City or Johnson County or Lynn County, but the city of Cedar Rapids understands this, and their decision-making is certain. That attracts developers. Without it, at least in the one simple instance of Westdale Mall, it would have looked the way it does, or did, for a long, long time. So here's a good success story for a TIF.
Any other comments?
You know, the only thing, Casey, I would add to this topic related to partnerships and private partnerships, public partnerships. Years ago, the university was, to some degree, an island. We were representative of and answerable to the citizens of the state of Iowa and to those who came to the University of Iowa. But if it was university property, it was university property. If it was a university project, that's it. That's what it was. Today, we are constantly in the process of partnering with the great communities that host us, and small and large opportunities, but we also now are endeavoring to best practice efforts that we see at other peer institutions where private-public partnerships and active projects that have been mentioned. Scott mentioned the graduate housing on the Hawkeye campus, for instance, is an example of a private-public partnership. We intend to do the first in this country private-public partnership museum of art, and we can't do these projects anymore without having our neighbors and our partners at the table with us. And so it's a very different environment than it was even a decade ago.
I just can't help but pose this question. I know you like to bring everybody up to date. So where's the art museum going to go? Never mind, Ron.
Stay tuned. We are in a period of due diligence with our finalists who submitted for that project now. We expect everything we do and all of our actions on a development perspective are approved by, reviewed by our Board of Regents. And so you can look at the Board of Regents schedule to figure out when those things are going to occur. In October, the Board of Regents visits Iowa City, visits the university, and October 22nd, 23rd. And we expect to be finished with our due diligence and report to them on the results of that effort at the end of October. So I think there will be good information to
And you may not report to me ahead of that? Is that what you're saying?
Just ahead of that.
Just ahead of, good enough. We've talked about ways that cities can encourage development. I'd like to flip that question on its head and get a little feedback on what it is that cities do that is most discouraging of development. I know you're dying to take that on, the presence of Kelly and Ryan. Speak right up.
So since most of us probably have permits or things in front of the city, what can we talk about South Dakota?
Well, maybe what has happened in Elkader or something like that would be.
Well, so I just want to hook a little bit on TIF, and if you live in this area, you know that I've taken exception to some of the things that have happened in Coralville. And so this is having said that, you know, the work that the Coralville City Council has done and Kelly has done has been pretty phenomenal. And my concern is, as a developer, as a taxpayer, is just how do we pay for it? So everything is here, and so the people that I work with, and I mean, I think I've always extended, I'll do whatever I can to help get this area developed, because it's, you know, people come here from all over the country and are just amazed at, you know, the amount of building that's going on in the $1.5 billion. I mean, think of it. We live in a community of about, roughly, if we combine them, about 90,000 people, and we've got, what do you think, Kelly? We're building in Coralville. How many hundreds of millions of dollars are going on right now? Probably 5. So $2 billion in an area where most communities around the country are struggling. So whatever disagreements we have, we can work that out. My only cautionary tale is that the mother or father of TIF, which was California, got so carried away that Jerry Brown ended TIFs because they were diverting a significant amount of money away, about $5 billion away from schools and city infrastructure. Having said that, I do agree with the people on the panel, and the development that we have, we just need to continue to be diligent and responsible about how we do it, and continue to work together as teammates and partners, and not and think of the big picture is, what do we look like 10, 15, and 20 years down the road? And so from rather than say what do cities do to make it challenging, I will challenge the community and cities, is that as I bring a retailer's perspective to this count, or this group. And so the concern is, on a good note, you know, we have the 4th or 5th, depending on which week you look at, lowest unemployment in the nation. I mean, think of that. I mean, we're, depending on what numbers you look at, we're anywhere from 2.7 to 3.2%, and I think it's closer to 2.7. Well, if you took economics in college, you know that perfect employment is 4%. So on one hand, that creates, everybody that wants a job can get a job, and if you drive around and you see every business, including banks, have a help wanted sign. When the university calls me and says, hey, can you tell me what you guys are doing to hire because we're struggling? I said, you would be the last people I would want to help. Because you have a much bigger budget than I do. So the point of the story, though, is that we have to work together with our community leaders and our state leaders. One is we need to work on, and to you builders, is we need affordable housing for people, because the service sector is growing at a significant rate. And if we want to build these phenomenal facilities and great venues to like 30 Hop and all those things, somebody's got to be there to serve your food, and they have to be able to live close by without having to drive from Williamsburg or, you know, Brighton or whatever. I mean, we have to make it more worker friendly, and so that's a big challenge for us. The other thing is, from a property tax standpoint, and I'm not here to beat anybody up on how high they are, because they are very high. Probably some of the commercial property taxes are some of the highest in the nation. But what we have to do is we have to make the pie bigger. And so what that means is that in order to grow our tax base, that means growing our tax base. So we have to be very cognizant about how we do that, because developers, when they come in, or retailers come in, and when they're faced with extremely high property taxes, they have no choice, they have the choices: either they raise taxes or raise prices, or they look somewhere else. And so our challenge for the next 10 to 15 years is, how do we grow the tax base in our community so that we can be competitive from a property tax standpoint? And the way we grow the tax base is to continue with more development, and to be able to bring more properties on that can pay their way and to state and city coffers, so that we can continue to be the phenomenal place that we are, to offer the services that we do and the entertainment and things like that. And then we also have to be able to offer venues for young people to stay, because it's a great place to raise kids, it's a great place to come back to. And so those are the challenges, I would say. Rather than tell you that cities make it difficult for me to develop, my goal would be is that how do we work together to expand our young people base, to expand our tax base so that modern companies can put more people to work building more buildings that come on the tax rolls so that Kelly can get Iowa River Landing paid for as soon as possible. And I'm not giving him a hard time, but as a taxpayer, that's what we want. We want this to be successful. And we all have to work to make sure that it is. And the next project and the next one. So those are my thoughts.
Thanks, Kevin. Kevin's gubernatorial candidacy will be announced shortly. Thank you. And that is a great segue to sort of the success that we've been having. The costs of both materials and labor on development projects, I'm talking about everything but cement, steel, it seems like everything's going up. I'm curious as to your take on those costs, where they've gone. Scott touched on it briefly, and where do you think they're going to go?
So we're spending a lot on that right now, and as we entered into what we knew was going to become a historically transformational period with more money spent per month per year than ever before. For a point of reference, prior to the 2008 flood, the University of Iowa was completing roughly $100 million in construction annually. We're currently at about $250 million a year, and we're not going to sustain that. We're at a peak of work thanks to the flood recovery, but we knew we were headed toward that, and about two and a half years ago we began to go on tour in the state, Master Builders of Iowa, our trades unions, individual contractors, contractor representatives, to try to entice them to come to Eastern Iowa, try to entice them to come and bid on projects for the University of Iowa, contractors who had never bid on our projects, some of whom were reluctant to do hard bidding and wanted to do partnerships. That's part of the reason, listening to them, that we endeavored with the help of our state and our regents to do design build for the first time. When we bid the big projects, we have 3 replacement projects: Hancher, the School of Art Studios building, and our School of Music. Those 3 projects together are estimated to be $402 million. They were all bid about the same time. They were all broken up into smaller pieces with the help of our construction management firms so that we could encourage Iowa contractors to do the work. Any one of those projects on their own as a single bid would have encouraged firms from Texas and Florida and all over to bid. So we armed ourselves for that, and we're successful on bid day. Those projects came in on budget. The challenge, the bigger challenge now, is the labor force. The bids may have come in, but the contractors weren't on site until now, and we're reaching a crescendo of work as we head to the inside of the buildings with the crafts and the trades that will work on the inside of these buildings all at the same time. We have the good bids. We have to get the contractors, qualified contractors, to the site. We encourage that people continue, as we see some of those programs in high school dwindle, that becomes an important component for us to grow that contractor field. That's our challenge. In the last 4 months, we've seen quite an increase in costs on our typical projects. Contractors not needing to bid those projects, or contractors actually being overrun with the work that they had signed up for in the earlier bids. So we were staying relatively even keel with the bids until probably 2 or 3 months ago. And we've seen higher bids. We've had to be careful on some of those, to your point on the long projection and what happens at the end of that peak. Do we end up with more laborers in the area than work? The university's also delayed projects artificially to make sure that we extend the curve of construction work. I mentioned the engineering project. Our pharmacy college project, which will start to receive state funding next summer, is a $96 million project. A new psychology project are examples of projects that will continue to keep contractors in this area and working. But some of them would have been delivered earlier had it not been for all the work we have going on right now.
I would agree with similar things that we see in the last several months, where we're starting to see some price creep. Not tremendous, but the difference is between Cedar Rapids and Iowa City is as close as it is. There really is what we've seen, a difference in subcontractor workforce, and at least the individuals that we've worked with I think to answer that and look forward over the next 18 months to 24 months as we look at our pipeline of work and we're working with our subcontractors and our partners, where we can say and show them that we've got projects lined up in the pipeline where they're not only bidding for work for this particular project, but we expect to control those costs and hold those labor costs, over that time period is very important. And it also helps us as we start putting packages together for projects that may not be starting for 12 months, 15 months in a staggered scenario like you're talking. So I think it's important with those relationships that people understand the workload's coming up, and as long as everybody stays true to the agreements and the projects move forward, that's how we've been controlling some of those costs and workforce issues.
Around the country, we've seen commodity pricing relatively stable. The problem is that anything that is associated with petroleum is subject to spikes, and everything is associated with petroleum. Whether it's carpet or mastic or anything you look around, even the transportation of it is associated with petroleum. For the first time since the early 70s, our country is consuming or producing more than half of the petroleum that we consume. That's the good news. The bad news is that very difficult things are going on in the Middle East that could change our world today. And then those spikes impact us. Right now, it's a great time to build stuff for all the reasons we've heard. It's a good thing. I mean, I feel your pain, Rod, on the contracting community. It's full employment. That's great. But it is a really good time to build. How long will it last? Well, we're betting at least 3 years unless some extraneous, some external circumstance imposes something not so good on all of us. And of course, we all hope that that doesn't happen. But it has happened before, so you have to be careful. So your timelines, I think the University of Iowa was very smart to move that curve out. But for a private developer, the thing that hurt us most at Westdale is a delay for over 12 months as we negotiated with the various tenants. That 12 months was a very stable time of development and a very stable time of pricing. I wish we had been under construction a year ago. So now the trick is to move quicker, not slower, but quicker, to get it done faster, because you just don't know. These are good times we'll look back on and say, wow, we wish we could do that again. We'll see it again. There's just no way to predict it. So right now, great times.
I know personally that appraisal fees are about to skyrocket. You should be aware of that. It can throw the whole thing off. We've got 3 minutes available to us, and I kind of want to throw it out to you guys. Is there anything you'd like to follow up on? Is there anything that you think that should be emphasized that we missed? There's so many great questions I'd still love to ask you guys, but we're running out of time. Any thoughts?
Sure. I'd like to address, in reverse of your question about the cities, what is difficult, but let's talk about what's good. Because if you'd asked me that question in Cedar Rapids 5 years ago, I probably would have had a book I could have written. Tremendous changes have happened, with our city staff, development staff, everybody there. It's become more of a very hands-on, user-friendly, what can we do to help? And that is an incredible change. And I think that's helped developers want to come to Cedar Rapids and build. I've heard numerous times, I think from the mayor saying, wow, what's going on in Cedar Rapids? Great things. And I'll give a couple bullet points. One, staff is very developer and builder friendly and want to see things happen and going out of their way to help. Two, council, our current council is very pro-development, wanting to see things happen. And three, because of those things, it creates activity. Activity is infectious. Activity breeds and activity. So the more of that cities can do to help that developer take their ideas, their projects, and bring those to life, the more developers are going to want to come in and make that happen. So I think that's a positive thing.
Let me emphasize that at the expense of repeating just for a second, because we see it around the country, and when we step into a project, the first thing I look for, seriously, is what cycle is the council in, and how many cycles are we going to go through if it's a multi-year project. If it's a city manager form of government, how long has the city manager been there? How stable is the decision making? What you have here, that I'm sure you had it before, I just wasn't here to witness it, but the number of decisions that the entire corridor has gone through, the mayor of North Liberty, Cedar Rapids, the managers, all these people, all your leaders, the staff, the flood put them through a tremendous number of very complex and in many ways career-changing decisions. They were rapid, they happened. What you've been through here, your developers like us are gaining the benefit of that. There's tremendous stability in decision-making and elected officials and staff. I mean, I cannot just overestimate how important that is, because there are so many places in the country where you don't have that. The confidence level of your decision makers is up here, and people like us see that, and it gives us comfort, it gives us confidence. It's hats off to you. It's a big, big deal.
I want to take a minute and just thank you guys for your insights and the time that you spent with us and your graciousness in answering all my questions. And I would like to get a round of applause for our fabulous panel.
Help me give Casey a round of applause. He did an excellent job again this year. I want to thank our presenters again, Kelly Hayworth and Ryan Heiar and Scott Byers. Let's give those three another round of applause as well. And lastly, I'd like to thank our sponsors one more time: Modern Companies, Shive Hattery, Climate Engineers, GibbsLambDrown, GLD Commercial, the City of Coralville, Two Rivers Bank, and Cook Appraisal. Thank you so much for coming, and keep reading the weekly Corridor Business Journal. We're adjourned.
Good to meet you. Yeah, you too. Thanks. Thank you. Keep it up. Nice to meet you.